Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lillian and I'm sharing my infertility journey. This is Oakley, and as it looks like he might join for some parts of this video. He's our 5-month-old puppy. We also have his brother Archie, who is 6 years old, and he's nicely content lying on the floor. Hi. Say hi. You going to say hi? In the previous video, I shared the story of my 2 chemical pregnancies, the first 2, which happened in a really strange way, I would say, because I found out both of those times that I was pregnant after my period. I shared more details about this in my video, so if you are interested to watch the story of my 2 chemical pregnancies that I found out I'm pregnant after my period, I will link it here and it will be in the description, so you can just click at it and look. This story leads me to what I'm going to discuss today, which is my initial diagnosis after experiencing these 2 chemical pregnancies. After I've experienced these 2 chemical pregnancies, something in my body completely changed. Before that, I would just have stable weight, I was healthy, I was feeling fine. Then we tried for the first time, as I said, in January, which ended up in that chemical pregnancy. I then did not get my period for a while. It took almost 2 months for my cycle to go back to normal after this. I feel like I have started to notice that I'm gaining weight, but in that moment I don't think I knew why. Like, I didn't connect it with the loss at all, but I definitely noticed that I carry more weight, I felt bloated constantly, I looked like pregnant, I felt really uncomfortable and so on. Then we moved here in April, and then in May, that's when I found out again that I had positive pregnancy test as I was on my period. I was hopeful that maybe it's different because I found out sooner, but yeah, the tests were getting darker and darker. It reached a certain point and then it started to go down. So that was my second loss. After this loss in May, it escalated so quickly. I was gaining every single week, regardless of me eating healthy. I have been doing reformer Pilates 3 times a week. I've been walking every day, we walk the dogs twice a day and so on. There was no reason for me to be gaining this much. I was gaining about 1 kilo a week, I would say. It was really, really quick. And I was gaining it like all over me. I can't explain. I might insert some photos, even though I am really ashamed of these photos, but I have been super bloated every night, even every morning. That was like alarming, because in the morning, like, you should have nothing, you know, in your belly, so like you should be the flattest. I woke up and I was already looking like pregnant. My face, like, I could see it, like, was much more like even rounder than now. Like, it was really round. I felt like puffy even on my chest, just like whole my body felt like very, like, that it expanded. And on top of that, I was super tired. Basically, the tiredness was like, I would walk the dogs, come home, and I would be so exhausted from this that I had to lie down like on a couch, and I would just like watch TV and not be able to do anything. It was just constant battle. I had no idea what is going on, and I think at that moment I still did not connect it with the losses. But because the losses happened the way they did, and I did not really find anyone on YouTube or Google that had the similar story, that the chemical pregnancies would be happening after the period, I tried to ask my GP if they would give me referral for a fertility clinic. And I hope they would accept me, because sometimes they want you to be trying for a year or had 3 losses. We had 2 losses and we have been only trying for like 5 months, but in those 5 months I skipped a cycle because of my first loss. So it was more like 4 cycles, and out of these 4 cycles we had 2 losses. But the clinic accepted us, which I was really grateful for, and the waiting time actually wasn't as long, so we managed to get there pretty soon after. I think it was June or July. and they ran so many tests. I think they took more than 20 ampules from me. It was so many blood tests. My husband done some as well, but it wasn't as many as I did. And then we have been just waiting for the results. Everything they looked at, beside this that I will say in a minute, was perfect. Everything they were looking at, so they were looking at like some vitamins, mineral levels. They were checking the gene MTHFR, I think it is. It's the one if you can methylate the folate. It was negative. They checked my thyroid, that was all good. They checked for, like, you know, those disorders when your blood is clotting and so on, that was all negative as well. They checked my AMH, which is the egg reserve. My number was more than average for my age group, so that was fine. I did not have the low egg reserve. My husband's blood work was also all good. We did the sperm test again, even though we did it ourselves, as I shared in my previous video, before we even started to try. His numbers were all perfect. For me, they also ran an autoimmune panel, which would include ANA test, and she said my ANA was positive. It was a weak positive 1 to 80 speckled pattern, and she said the speckled pattern is often found in people who either have or might eventually develop either lupus, rheumatic arthritis, or Sjogren's syndrome. Because my ANA was positive, they also ran ENA. The ENA was positive as well. So under the ENA, they test several things like the antibodies, and I've tested positive for one of them. So under the ENA panel, I've tested positive for, I'll insert it here as well, anti-SSA 60. The other ones were negative. There is also anti-SSB and some other things. Everything was negative, but the anti-SSA, thanks to that, the ENA was positive, and then the ANA was at 1 to 80, which is quite low. Sometimes even healthy people can have positive ANA. So she started to ask me lots of questions, but honestly, until that point that we started to try to conceive, I had zero symptoms. I was completely healthy. I was having a stable weight, a stable mood, not tired. I was full of energy. So all of this started to happening after I had the losses. Basically what they said to me is, these are the papers that we found on the anti-SSA, and they handed to me. And one of the papers said adverse pregnancy effects with anti-SSA positive women. And when I've read the studies, basically it was saying that the people with which they have the anti-SSA, they are more prone to chemical pregnancies, implantation failures, early pregnancy losses, and adverse pregnancy effects. I'll just repeat, this is all the autoimmune panel. I feel like they didn't explain properly what it all means, but they basically said to us that they can't really help us at the moment. We should just go back home, read on this, continue trying, and if we are not pregnant within a year, we can come back and we can discuss IVF. She said they can't really help us because we are falling pregnant, we are not staying pregnant, and the anti-SSA basically can be the reason. So I started immediately doing lots of research about the antibody, what it means, and so on. And I got down the rabbit hole. I was researching almost every day, reading different things, and honestly it really scared me, because basically the antibody meant there is more potential harm to the baby than myself. The antibody just meant that maybe I could potentially develop the lupus or the Sjogren's syndrome, but I don't have it right now. I did not have positive antibodies for either of those. So you can test for lupus, Sjogren, it was all negative. I was told that this antibody is forever and you can't do anything about it. And what it also means is that if you actually get pregnant and stay pregnant through the pregnancy, you have to be monitored more closely between the week, I believe, 15 and 26, because what can happen is that the antibody can cross via the placenta and affect the baby's developing heart. It can develop a congenital heart block. Basically, the worst case scenario is that the baby passes away in your belly when you're pregnant because of the heart. Second worst scenario is that it's like the stage 4 or whatnot, and they will require an open heart surgery straight away after they are born. And then the other ones are that it's just a little bit, that it might just need monitoring, and they can also be born with I don't know if it's called congenital lupus, or like it's the lupus that's just like when you are a baby and then it goes away. And best case scenario is that nothing happens. It's not guaranteed that it happens, it's just that it can. I'm pretty sure like the chances are actually not as high, but when you're reading the studies all about the bad stuff, it really messes with your mind. I'm pretty sure that like the chances of in people without the SSA, let's say, are 2%, and with the SSAs, let's say 3%. So it's still very low. But if you do have the congenital heart block once with your baby, it is much more likely it will happen again with a consecutive pregnancy. I think then it rises to like 25%, which is pretty high. So more and more I was reading about it. I still didn't really have answers what I can do about it and why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. Eventually, I finally ordered a book about autoimmune disease, and one of the first chapters was check your gut microbiome and also inflammation. So I never really learned about either of those, especially inflammation. I did not really know what it means, what it feels like, or anything like that. And sorry, Oakley is playing with a mirror. So I didn't really know, but when I read about the inflammation, I was like, ding, 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 like I'm definitely inflamed. Like that's what's happening, because what I've read is that basically the hormone changes after giving birth can often trigger an autoimmune condition in females, because the hormonal switch and everything is really hard on the body, and that's why more women have autoimmune conditions than men. So I was like, maybe the losses and some of those hormonal changes triggered something in me, and that's why I started to feel this way, because it never happened before, obviously, my losses. So I believe that my loss triggered the inflammation in my body, and I'll shorten this, but basically what I've researched is that when you have chronic inflammation, you feel very, very tired, and you can be gaining a lot of inflammation weight, because all of your body, all of your cells are inflamed. And when you are inflamed, like for example, if you would roll your ankle and you would have the acute inflammation when your body is trying to heal it, it will puff up, right? Your ankle will be swollen. Well, and this is what's happening, but with your cells. So every cell in your body gets like swollen. At that moment, I went to my GP and I found out that it was in chronic numbers. It was the chronic inflammation. And I was like, are you kidding me? When you live with chronic inflammation for prolonged periods of times, it can cause cancer and so many other health issues. So I started to research the anti-inflammatory diet, when you have to cut out a lot of things from your diet. So I started to do that. But eventually I finally came across on YouTube, doctor in America, free YouTube videos that you can watch. She has free information online, so you can follow her diet without paying a cent. But what I have always read is that you cannot get rid of autoimmune disease. You are either in remission or you have active disease in that moment, but it's not something you can reverse. I'm a big on reversing. I did not want to have diagnoses that will be for life. Like, I don't like that. So I looked into it and I was like, look, I will do anything. And I immediately the next day started the diet. And oh my God, I was even noting down my weight back then every single day. My weight started to come off right away. I started to get my energy back within days. It was so quick. I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. I was losing weight so quickly because a lot of the weight was inflammation, and with the inflammation leaving my body, so was the weight. But the energy levels, that was like the biggest difference. I felt amazing really quickly. So I stick to that diet, and I was really hoping I will be able to reverse that antibody, because I did not want to have that antibody because I don't want to, harm the baby. That's the most important thing. So I continued on the diet and I was doing the blood work, but for the antibody they didn't give me the number. So I called the lab and they said it was really strong positive. The number was 85. I then connected with someone from India who actually had the same numbers like me, the 85 strong, and she learned about this unfortunately because she lost her baby girl at 25 weeks and she didn't know she had that, and she passed away because of the heart block. Then they tested her and found out that this is what she has. So it is really serious, it was really high. And with this diet, like as I'm saying, my weight was flying off, my energy levels restored, I felt really good. Like at the same time I was working with a functional medicine doctor on my gut health. I was taking some like herbal supplements for the gut health and so on, and she was checking my blood every 3 months just to see like the normal markers, and the inflammation was going down, which was great. Like from that number it went like then down to no inflammation, which was great. And then I was repeating the test for the antibody and for my ANA, and I actually managed to reverse my ANA. My ANA went back to negative, and my anti-SSA, which is apparently really tough antibody to get rid of because it has such a long lifespan, it takes time to die off and so on, went to a very weak positive. The last time I called them, the number was 4, and when it's 3, it's considered negative. So I was 1 point from being negative. And during this whole time, by the way, we were preventing pregnancy. So we were not only not trying, we were preventing it, because I really wanted to get better before we would ever try again. Because I just realized after that if I have gotten pregnant in that moment, for example in May, when I by the way gained 16 kilos from that inflammation, 16 kilos, and I'm really short. It was not nice. It was really, really bad. And if on top of that I would get, keep the pregnancy, I would probably gain, from being pregnant at least 10 other kilos. So I would be probably massive, miserable, tired. Inflammation cannot be good for the pregnancy either. And I don't think I would know in that moment that I'm inflamed, because I started to look into all of this after that second loss. I think I will end the video here because it's probably very long and my story is long. I would really appreciate if you could subscribe, hit the like button, and all of these things that people say. This is my second video on YouTube, so I'm very new. I'm really learning about it all. Well, thank you for watching. Have a great day.